Planet Varela 9 floated quietly in the outer rim of the galaxy, a green and blue jewel surrounded by silver clouds and golden rings. For 200 years it had known peace. Farmers grew crystal crops, children played under twin suns, and traders moved between cities shining with glass towers. But all that peace ended in one terrible night. The first sign came from the northern sky. A strange flash, then a deep vibration in the ground within seconds. The defense towers detected hundreds of unknown ships descending through the atmosphere. The alarm sirens screamed across the cities. The Raxar Dominion had come. They were known for burning planets and enslaving survivors. And now they had found Varela. Governor Talon stood inside the control tower, his voice shaking as he shouted orders to his officers. Send the distress beacon every frequency. All channels. The comm officer's hands trembled. Signal sent, Governor, repeating every 10 seconds. Outside, the night sky turned red as enemy bombardments began. The peaceful colony had no warships, no shields strong enough to stop the fire from above. Across the galaxy, deep in the halls of the Galactic Council, the distress signal from Varela reached their golden chambers. The senators from 100 species listened to the cry for help. They looked at each other with worry, but none moved. The Raxar Dominion was too strong, too ruthless if they intervened. They risked their own destruction, one senator whispered. Let us wait. Perhaps they will surrender peacefully, another said softly. Sending aid would provoke war, and so, the council waited on Varela. Waiting meant death. The cities burned. Thousands ran toward the southern ports hoping to escape. In the sky, enemy ships moved like shadows, firing beams that turned forests to ash. Families screamed as they saw escape shuttles vaporized mid-flight. The ground cracked under explosions. In the command bunker, the lights flickered. Governor Talon leaned against the console, covered in dust and blood. Any response from the council? He asked. The comm officer lowered his head. Nothing, sir, only static. Silence filled the room, broken only by distant thunder from orbital bombardment. Then something unexpected happened. The radar operator's screen flashed with a new signal. Governor, we are detecting something big, she said, her eyes wide. Multiple signatures. Large ships. Very large, entering the system from the outer dark. Talon grabbed the console. Are they Raxar reinforcements? No, sir, she replied, her voice uncertain. Their designs don't match anything in the database. The sensor images began to form on the screen. Massive black shapes gliding out of the void. Each ship was enormous, their hulls sharp and angular like blades. They moved in perfect formation, their engines glowing blue-white like burning stars. No identification code, no diplomatic signal, only silence. Then the long-range visual feed came online. One of the junior officers gasped, Sir, look, they carry an old symbol. A blue circle with a white star in the center. The governor's eyes widened. That's impossible. That's the emblem of Earth. The room went still. No one had spoken that name in centuries. Humanity was a myth to most of the younger species. They were called Deathworlders, a race that vanished after refusing to join the Council's peace treaties. Many believed they had destroyed themselves. The comm officer tried hailing the unknown fleet. Unidentified vessels, this is the colony of Varela 9. We are under attack by the Raxar Dominion. We request assistance. Static filled the speakers. Then after a long moment, a voice replied, deep, calm, and chilling. Varela 9. Your signal has been received. Stand by, outside. The Raxar fleet noticed the newcomers. Hundreds of smaller warships turned toward the new threat. Their commanders laughed, thinking it was another weak rescue force. But the laughter ended when the black ships began to deploy weapons. The first shot came from the largest vessel, a dreadnought nearly 10 kilometers long. Its main cannon lit up like a rising sun. The beam cut through space, slicing an entire Raxar cruiser in half. In seconds, more Deathworlder ships opened fire. Railguns roared, missiles streaked through the darkness, and Raxar formations broke apart under the sudden storm. On Varela's surface, survivors watched in disbelief. The burning sky turned bright white from the explosions above. Children pointed at the trails of light crossing the heavens, shouting, "They're fighting for us." But no one knew who these warriors were or why they had come. In the command room, Governor Talon stared at the screen as the Raxar fleet disintegrated. "Who are they?" he whispered. The comm officer looked pale. "Sir, the transmission code from the flagship has been identified." The screen flickered with a single phrase written in an ancient human tongue. "United Earth Command, HSS Ragnarok, The officers stood in silence. The name carried weight older than their civilization. Humanity had returned, but their arrival was not gentle. It was like the return of a storm long forgotten. The last thing Talon heard before the communication cut out was a short transmission from the human fleet. "Hold your ground, Varela, the Deathworlders are here." Above the planet, the Black Fleet spread its wings across the stars, forming a shadow that swallowed the light. The galaxy would soon learn that salvation had a new face, and it came wrapped in steel and fire. The Raxar Dominion had ruled the edge of the galaxy for centuries. Their fleets were feared, their cruelty legendary. They believed no one would ever challenge them. But that belief died the moment the human warships appeared from the void. In orbit above Varela 9, the battlefield burned with debris and flame. Human dreadnoughts moved like predators among smaller Raxar ships. Their black armor reflected no light. Their engines roared like thunder. The flagship HSS Ragnarok led the charge, its hull marked with the ancient crest of Earth, a symbol unseen for 3,000 years. Inside the command deck, Admiral Cale Morgan stood tall, his expression carved in steel. His uniform was simple, black with silver stripes. Across the holographic map, red dots representing enemy ships blinked out one by one. "Target the Raxar carriers, fire in sequence," he ordered calmly. The crew responded without hesitation. Every command echoed through the ship like a heartbeat. Lieutenant Arya Voss, the tactical officer, glanced at her admiral. "Sir, the colony on Varela is transmitting a distress request again." Kyle's eyes remained fixed on the battle map. "They will be safe soon enough," he replied, his tone cold. "Focus fire on the Raxar flagship, outside." The Deathworlder fleet unleashed power the galaxy had long forgotten. Railgun slugs the size of city buses cut through shields like paper. Missile swarms traced silver trails across the void. The Raxar commander, aboard his burning flagship, screamed for reinforcements, but none came. Within minutes, the Dominion's entire invasion force began to collapse. In the colony's control room, survivors watched the impossible unfold. The alien soldiers who once ruled their skies now ran in panic. The people whispered among themselves, "The humans. They are saving us," but when the transmission from the Ragnarok arrived, the message chilled them. "This system is under Deathworlder jurisdiction. Stay within your planetary boundaries until debriefing. Any resistance will be met with force," Governor Talon frowned. "Jurisdiction? They sound like conquerors." No one dared to answer. The humans had saved them, but their tone carried no kindness. Meanwhile, in the upper atmosphere, human boarding craft moved through the smoke. Landing pods slammed into the Raxar wrecks, releasing armored soldiers in black exosuits. They carried insignias of old Earth nations: United Terran Marines, Earth Defense Legion, Lunar Corps. Their helmets glowed blue, their movements precise, efficient, emotionless. They collected survivors, eliminated resistance, and retrieved fallen comrades without a word, back aboard the Ragnarok. Admiral Morgan stood before a hologram displaying the galactic map. "Transmission received from the Council," Lieutenant Voss reported. "They request identification and clarification of our presence," the Admiral smirked. "Clarification? After 3,000 years of silence, now they remember us." He turned toward his officers. "Prepare a reply." The transmission sent across the galaxy carried a message that froze entire star systems. The voice of the Deathworlder fleet echoed through every channel. "This is Admiral Cale Morgan of the United Earth Command. We have returned to reclaim what was lost. The age of hiding is over. The Deathworlders walk among the stars once more." In the council chamber, the senators sat in stunned silence. The last record of humanity described them as unfit for galactic peace, exiled from civilized space. Now they had returned not as refugees, but as a war fleet, one senator whispered. "If they have rebuilt their armies, if they have harnessed Deathworld technology." The silence deepened on Varela. Human forces restored power grids, cleared debris, and built command outposts within hours. Governor Talon approached one of the soldiers, his voice trembling. "We are grateful for your help, but why are you here?" The soldier's visor reflected the burning sky, his voice calm. "We came because we heard your signal, Governor. You asked for salvation," humanity answered. "But at what cost?" Talon whispered. The soldier didn't reply. Instead, he turned toward the heavens where the Ragnarok hung like a black star. Far above in the darkness between stars, the rest of the Deathworlder armada was moving. Dozens of fleets hidden for centuries under coded orders now reactivated. Entire sectors of forgotten human colonies awakened from slumber. The galaxy began to realize a terrible truth. Humanity hadn't vanished. They had been watching, waiting, building in silence. And now they were back. The message spread faster than light itself. Across trade routes, pirate bands, and council stations, the Deathworlders have returned, some whispered in fear. They are coming for revenge, others said. But among oppressed worlds there was a flicker of hope. If they stand against the Dominion, maybe we can be free. In the darkness of his command deck, Admiral Morgan watched the stars. His second-in-command approached quietly. "Sir, what's our next move?" Cale's eyes glowed faintly in the light of the monitors. "Next," he said, "we remind the galaxy why it feared humanity." Outside, the fleet began to shift formation. Weapons recharged, engines roared, and the Ragnarok turned toward the next Raxar stronghold. In that moment, across the stars, a storm had begun, and this time it carried the name of Earth. The war over Varela 9 had only just begun. Though the Raxar invasion force was shattered, more ships poured from hyperspace like a swarm of angry wasps. They would not surrender easily. Not to the humans they once called extinct. From orbit, the Deathworlder fleet moved with terrifying precision. The HSS Ragnarok held position above the burning world, its massive cannons silent for a moment. Inside the command deck, Admiral Cale Morgan watched the red dots multiplying across the tactical screen. "The Raxar are committing everything they have," Lieutenant Voss said quietly. Cale's expression did not change. "Then we'll show them what everything means," he replied. Below, the skies of Varela were filled with fire. Raxar fighters screamed through the clouds, dropping plasma charges on the ruins of human landing sites. The colonists hid in underground shelters, trembling as the ground shook, but then a new sound rose, deep and rhythmic, the roar of human dropships cutting through the atmosphere. Each drop pod was a spear of steel, burning through the air before slamming into the ground. The hatches burst open and armored Deathworlder Marines stormed out, their armor black and red, moving like living machines. They carried weapons that glowed with quiet fury, rail-accelerated rifles that turned stone walls into dust. Sergeant Hale led one of the ground teams. His voice echoed through the comms. "Secure the west sector. Push them back toward the cliffs." The Raxar warriors were huge reptilian beasts with claws like blades. But against the Deathworlders they found themselves outmatched. Humans fought like predators born for war. Their reflexes were faster, their strikes more brutal, their will unbroken. One Raxar commander shouted over the battle frequency, "They are mad. They fight like death gods." His voice was cut short by a rail round that shattered his armor. Above the battlefield, the Ragnarok's orbital weapons activated again. From space, golden beams lanced through the clouds, each one precise and deliberate, destroying only enemy strongholds. Admiral Morgan's voice came through every Deathworlder channel. "Maintain control, no civilian casualties. We are not here to conquer Varela, only to end the Raxar." Governor Talon watched the sky from a shelter window. Each blast lit the clouds like lightning. He could hardly breathe. "They fight with such power," he whispered. "They could destroy us all if they wanted." As the battle raged, Lieutenant Voss monitored an incoming transmission from a Raxar dreadnought. "Admiral," she said, "the enemy flagship is broadcasting a message." Kyle nodded. "Put it through." The voice of the Raxar commander came through, full of hate and disbelief. "Deathworlders, you should have stayed in your grave. You cannot win against the Dominion. You will burn as you always have." Kyle leaned toward the console, his voice cold as ice. "We already burned once, Commander. That's why we don't fear fire anymore." Then he gave a single order. "Fire the Ragnarok's main gun." The ship's entire frame vibrated. A deep hum filled space as energy built along the dreadnought's core. Then the beam erupted, a line of white-hot plasma slicing through the void. It struck the Raxar flagship dead center. The explosion lit up the system like a second sun. Every transmission in the area went silent. On the ground, Raxar soldiers looked up in terror as their command ship disintegrated. Some tried to flee, others threw down their weapons. Within hours, the remaining invaders were hunted down or captured. The battlefield fell silent except for the crackle of fires and the hum of human engines. Sergeant Hale stood amid the ruins, removing his helmet. His face was young, but his eyes were old. "We've secured the planet. Admiral," he reported through his comm. "Resistance neutralized." "Good work," Cal replied. "Prepare for extraction in the command bunker." Governor Talon received the same transmission feed. The human admiral's voice filled the speakers, calm and commanding. "Colony Varela 9, your world is safe. Your people will be provided with supplies and medical aid. The Rexar will not return." Talon swallowed hard. "Thank you, Admiral. You saved millions." There was a short silence before the reply came. "We didn't do it for gratitude, Governor. We did it because no one else would." Then the channel closed. The colonists stood outside their shelters, watching the Deathworlder ships rise back into the sky. The fleet looked like a storm of black wings, leaving trails of blue light. The people of Varela wept in relief and fear. They had been saved. Yes, but by a force that seemed far beyond mercy. As the last human ship disappeared into orbit, children pointed upward. "Are they angels, Mama?" one asked. The mother hesitated before whispering, "No, child, they're something older." In the void above, Admiral Cale Morgan stared at the fading image of the burning world. "One system down," he said quietly. "Many more to go." His second-in-command turned toward him. "Sir, are we liberators or conquerors?" Kyle didn't answer. He looked at the star map where other red markers flashed. Each one a planet under Raxar control. His voice was almost a whisper. "We are what the galaxy made us." The HSS Ragnarok turned slowly toward its next destination. Engines flaring, weapons charged, and deep within the cold metal halls, humanity's soldiers prepared for another war. They never started. The galaxy watched in silence, realizing the truth. The Deathworlders were not just back. They were unstoppable. The fires of Varela still burned when the HSS Ragnarok left orbit. The Deathworlder fleet drifted into the silent darkness between stars, its black hulls glowing faintly in the light of distant suns. The Raxar Dominion had fallen quiet, their transmissions filled only with panic and disbelief. In the command room of the Ragnarok, Admiral Cale Morgan stood before a holo display showing hundreds of blinking dots. Each dot was a world that had once belonged to humanity, lost and forgotten during the Great Silence. Lieutenant Voss approached quietly. "Sir, our scouts report multiple distress calls from nearby colonies. The Raxar are retreating, but chaos is spreading everywhere." Cale nodded slowly, his gaze distant. "Let them retreat. Let them remember who we are." His voice was calm, yet behind it carried the weight of centuries deep in the lower decks. A prisoner sat chained inside a steel containment cell. It was the captured Raxar commander from Varela, his scales cracked, his armor scorched. Two Deathworlder Marines stood guard outside, silent as statues. When the door opened, Admiral Morgan entered, his shadow falling across the alien. The Raxar hissed, "You are no savior, Deathworlder. You bring only destruction." Cale stared at him. "You attacked an innocent world, you enslaved thousands. And you speak to me about destruction?" The alien sneered. "You humans vanished for millennia. The galaxy thought you extinct. What dragged you back from your grave?" Cale stepped closer, his expression cold. "We didn't vanish," he said quietly. "We were abandoned." The Raxar blinked. Confused, Cale continued, his tone sharp as a blade. 3,000 years ago, Earth called for help. The sky burned. The Council promised aid, and then they sealed the gates. They left us to die. He leaned forward, his voice almost a whisper. "You call us Deathworlders because our home killed the weak, but it also forged the unbroken." The alien's eyes widened. "You survived?" Cale nodded. "We rebuilt beneath the ashes. We created worlds of metal, colonies hidden beyond the outer rim. We built fleets from forgotten technology. And we waited." The Raxar trembled. "Waited for what?" "For this," Cale replied simply. "To return, on the bridge." Lieutenant Voss watched the interrogation through the surveillance feed, her expression unreadable. "He's telling the truth," she said quietly to herself. No wonder the Council feared them. Moments later, Cale stepped back onto the command deck. "Set a course for the Epsilon Verge," he ordered. That's where it started. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Epsilon Verge, the sector where Earth's final transmissions were last heard before the silence, was a graveyard. A forbidden zone, legends said ghosts haunted its ruins. As the fleet approached, the stars seemed to dim. The void grew heavier, filled with wreckage from wars long forgotten. Burnt hulls drifted aimlessly, their names erased by time. The Ragnarok's scanners flickered as strange energy signatures rippled through space. Lieutenant Voss frowned. "Sir, readings are unstable. Radiation is off the charts." Kale's eyes narrowed. "That's the remains of the old relay network, the one that carried our final message." On the holographic screen, a broken satellite slowly rotated, its emblem faint but still visible. The United Earth seal. Kale raised a hand. "Lock onto that signal." The transmission played, a voice broken by static. "To any surviving human fleet, this is Earth Command. We are under attack. The Council has closed its borders. We stand alone, but we will not surrender. If you find this message, remember who we were." The bridge went silent. Every crew member felt the same chill. The voice was ancient, but filled with pride and fury. Kale turned away, his jaw clenched. "That's why we fight," he said softly. "Not for vengeance, but for memory." Lieutenant Voss hesitated. "Sir, the Council sent a message while you were in the brig. They request a meeting. They say they want peace." Kale smiled faintly, though his eyes were empty. "Peace," he repeated. "Now they remember the humans they left to die." He turned toward the viewport, where the wreckage of forgotten warships drifted like tombstones. "Tell them," he said slowly, "we'll meet them soon. But they won't like what we have to say." In distant systems, rumors began to spread. Some said humanity had become something more than flesh and bone, that their death worlds had changed them. Others claimed their souls were bound with machines, making them immortal. The galaxy trembled at the thought that night, as the Ragnarok glided past the broken remains of old human satellites. A signal pulsed across the void, the Deathworlder emblem. Glowing bright and alive, the message was short, written in the language of a forgotten world. "We were forsaken. We endured. We remember," and as it spread across the stars, one truth became clear. Humanity had not returned to join the galaxy. They had returned to remind it of its sins. The Deathworlders' silence had ended and their reckoning had just begun. The Deathworlder fleet drifted through the ashes of forgotten empires. The stars ahead shimmered like cold fire. Behind them lay the ruins of the Raxar dominion, silent and broken. Word of humanity's return had spread faster than light, across the galaxy. Countless worlds whispered the same words. "The Deathworlders have come back." Inside the HSS Ragnarok, the bridge lights dimmed as Admiral Kale Morgan stood before a massive display. On it, the Galactic Council's symbol rotated slowly. Waiting for a response, Lieutenant Arya Voss turned to him, her voice uncertain. "Sir, the Council requests a live communication. They want to discuss terms of alliance." Kale's expression remained calm. "Alliance," he said quietly. "They want our strength without accepting their guilt." He looked around at his crew, humans forged by centuries of hardship, soldiers who had never seen Earth but carried its fire in their hearts. "Open the channel," he said. The holographic projectors flared to life. The faces of the Council filled the command deck. 100 alien species. Old and proud but now nervous, their leader, a tall, pale being with silver eyes, spoke first. "Admiral Kale Morgan of Earth Command, we welcome your unexpected return." Kale's voice was steady. "You left us to die." Murmurs filled the chamber. The Council leader hesitated. That was a different age. Humanity was unstable, dangerous. The decision to close the borders was made for the safety of the galaxy. Kale stepped closer, his eyes hard as obsidian. "Safety," he repeated. "You watched Earth burn and called it safety. You let billions die because you were afraid of us." The chamber fell silent. No one dared to speak. Kale's words echoed across every open frequency, broadcast to hundreds of systems that were listening in secret. He continued, "We rebuilt ourselves on worlds where no one could survive. We fought the storms, the darkness, and the silence you gave us, and now we are here. Not to ask for forgiveness, but to make sure no one else suffers the same fate." Lieutenant Voss whispered to another officer. "He's broadcasting it to the entire galaxy." The officer nodded quietly. "Every world is hearing this." Kale raised his hand, signaling for the transmission to expand. Across the stars, on distant colonies, pirate stations, and alien capitals, the image of the human admiral filled every screen. His voice carried through static and shadow. "To every world that begged for help and was ignored, to every colony that burned while the Council debated, hear me," he said. "Humanity has returned. We are not your rulers. We are not your saviors, but we are the reminder that silence has a cost. In the council chamber, panic spread. One alien senator stood, shouting, "You threaten us with war." Kale's tone never changed. "War was your gift to us. You gave us nothing else to learn from." Then he gave a simple command. "Transmit the beacon." Lieutenant Voss pressed a control, and every Deathworlder ship across the fleet activated its signal. A wave of blue light spread through the galaxy. Each beacon projected the same message: Earth endures. On thousands of worlds, holograms appeared in the sky, showing images of Earth's oceans, mountains, and the human symbol glowing bright. Children from distant species watched in awe as the message repeated. "We remember, we endure, we return." The council leader tried to speak again, his voice trembling. "What do you want, Admiral? What is your purpose now?" Kale looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Justice," he said, "and peace through strength. If the galaxy cannot defend its weak, then humanity will. If the Raxar rise again, if any empire dares to enslave or destroy the innocent, the Deathworlder fleet will come." Lieutenant Voss watched as messages flooded in from outer colonies, from small planets and forgotten moons. Millions were cheering, pledging alliance to humanity. The oppressed saw them as heroes. The powerful saw them as a storm. Kale turned away from the projection. "End transmission," he ordered. The screen went dark, leaving only the reflection of the stars on the glass. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Sergeant Hale's voice came over the comms. "Admiral, reports from multiple sectors. The Raxar remnants are surrendering. Entire systems are requesting Deathworlder protection." Kale closed his eyes, taking a slow breath. "And so it begins," he murmured. Lieutenant Voss stepped closer, her tone softer. "Sir, what now?" Kale looked out into the endless void. "Now we rebuild what they destroyed. But we will never kneel again." The HSS Ragnarok turned slowly, its engines igniting like small suns. Behind it, hundreds of Deathworlder ships followed, stretching across the horizon like a wall of iron and fire. As the fleet vanished into hyperspace, a quiet transmission lingered behind, a simple message echoing across the galaxy. "To those who cry for salvation, know this: the Deathworlders are listening." And with that, the stars fell silent once more, not in fear, but in awe. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy had remembered what it meant to hope, and what it meant to fear humanity.